Before Harry Potter, before Voldemort's rise, there was a friendship so pure it could have changed everything. She was the brightest witch of her age. He was the boy no one understood. This is the tragic, untold story of Lily Evans and Severus Snape, a story of love, loss, betrayal, and sacrifice. The heartbreak that shaped a war, the regret that saved a life, the love that never died. Get ready for the full truth behind their friendship, the rise of Voldemort, and how one man's regret became the greatest protection the world had ever known. This tale begins in the year 1930 with the birth of Eileen Prince, the eldest daughter of a pure-blood wizarding family. Though the Princes were wealthy, Eileen's upbringing was far from warm or nurturing. The family, particularly her father and other relatives, had long hoped for a male heir, a wish her mother was unable to fulfill. While the wider world was consumed by the First Global Wizarding War, led by the infamous dark wizard Gellert Grindelwald, young Eileen began her education at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It is presumed that she was sorted in a Slytherin house, much like many members of her family before her. Despite her strong magical prowess, Eileen found it difficult to form friendships. Her childhood had left her withdrawn, and her intense interest in the dark arts made others wary of her. She was perceived as strange, even dangerous, particularly because of her love for gobstones, a game that most students avoided. Similar to Muggle marbles, gobstones carried a disgusting twist. Every time a player lost a point, the winning stone would squirt foul-smelling liquid into the loser's face. Eileen loved the game so much that she became the captain of the Hogwarts Gobstones team in her 5th year, as well as president of the Gobstone Club. After graduation, the small sanctuary Eileen had built for herself at school came to an end. She likely left her family behind, distancing herself from the toxic expectations of her household, and ventured into the Muggle world in search of freedom. There, she met Tobias Snape, a kind young man who offered her something she had never known: genuine affection. Tobias was a Muggle, and perhaps overwhelmed by this unfamiliar warmth, Eileen fell in love. After a brief courtship, they married. Her choice to wed a non-magical man may have resulted in her being disowned by her family, not unlike Andromeda Tonks, who had been cast out by the House of Black for similar reasons. Eileen and Tobias settled in the industrial town of Cokeworth, in a dismal area known as Spinner's End. Life there was harsh. Tobias earned meager wages working in a factory, while Eileen struggled to find a place in the Muggle world. Over time, her resentment toward Muggles began to grow. Likewise, Tobias, embittered by his wife's perceived coldness and strange ways, became increasingly bitter. When Eileen became unexpectedly pregnant, Tobias opposed the idea of having a child. But Eileen, clinging to the hope that this baby might give her life some meaning, decided to keep him. And so, in January 1960, Severus Snape was born. Just like his mother before him, Severus Snape grew up in a home void of love. His father, Tobias, who had turned to alcohol and grown more aggressive over time, saw Severus as the source of his misfortune. The house was filled with tension and arguments. Eileen, once hopeful about motherhood, grew cold and detached. She became more neglectful, sinking deeper into depression. Some magical scholars believe that early trauma can suppress a child's magical abilities, while others argue it can heighten them. In Severus' case, it was the latter. Before turning 10, he had already displayed remarkable magical skill. Eileen, recognizing his potential, likely began teaching him in secret, away from Tobias' disapproving eyes. By the time his Hogwarts letter arrived, Severus had already mastered advanced spells and dabbled in the dark arts. Years later, Sirius Black would claim that young Snape knew more hexes than most 7th years. He also possessed an unusual gift, legilimency, the ability to peer into another's mind and emotions. Even at a young age, this made Severus different, sharper, more guarded, and far more aware of others than most children his age. It was during one of those lonely summers in Spinner's End that Severus noticed a girl his age living nearby. She glowed with life, and her magic was evident to him even before he spoke to her. Summoning his courage, he approached her. Her name was Lily Evans. Soon, the two became inseparable. Despite Lily's sister Petunia's disapproval, she often mocked Severus for his ragged clothes. The pair found comfort in their bond. Together, they felt seen, safe, and understood. Their friendship deepened the day they both received their Hogwarts letters. On September 1st, 1971, Lily and Severus arrived at King's Cross Station to board the Hogwarts Express. During the train ride, they had a tense encounter with two other first years, James Potter and Sirius Black. A disagreement about Hogwarts houses escalated quickly. Severus defended Slytherin, proud of his mother's heritage, while James and Sirius mocked him, saying only dark wizards ended up there. They even insulted his appearance. Lily tried to defend him, but her words did little to ease the humiliation. That brief but heated exchange planted the seeds of a bitter rivalry that would define the years ahead. At the sorting ceremony, Severus was placed into Slytherin, as expected. But Lily was sorted into Gryffindor. When Severus saw her join the table with James and Sirius, he felt a pang of loneliness he hadn't known since before he met her. From his first year at Hogwarts, Severus excelled in defense against the dark arts, a subject that came naturally to him thanks to both his talent and his mother's early instruction. But it was in potions that he truly stood out, arguably the best in his year, matched only by Lily. Despite being in different houses, the two remained close friends, their bond rooted in shared knowledge and long hours spent discussing magic. However, their paths began to diverge. Lily, bright and compassionate, quickly caught the eye of Professor Horace Slughorn, who invited her to join the prestigious Slug Club, a circle of promising young witches and wizards. Severus, despite his brilliance, remained unnoticed, hidden in the shadows by choice and by temperament. Like his mother before him, Severus was quiet, withdrawn, and uncomfortable in social settings. He looked down on his peers, especially Muggleborns, and preferred books to butterbeer at the Three Broomsticks. His air of superiority further fueled the tension between him and James Potter, who, along with Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew, had become the popular Gryffindor group known as the Marauders. James, rash and adored by his peers, enjoyed mocking Severus, often calling him Snivellus. Though Lily shared a house with James, she found his bullying cruel and undeserved. Her loyalty to Severus, however, began to strain under the weight of his growing bitterness and the dark path he was treading. It was around this time that Severus started crafting a secret identity, the Half-Blood Prince. Drawing on his mother's maiden name, Prince, and distancing himself from his Muggle father, Severus began developing new spells and modifying old ones. Some were inventive, like Muffliato or Libra Corpus, while others were dangerous and cruel, like Sectum Sempra, a vicious curse that left deep, slashing wounds. He carefully recorded these inventions in his copy of Advanced Potion Making, improving existing recipes as well. Among his enhanced potions were the Draught of Living Death, a powerful antidote, and the elixir to induce euphoria. While some of this was done out of pure brilliance and curiosity, there was another motive: defense. Constantly harassed by the Marauders, Severus needed a way to fight back. One of the Marauders' allies, a clever and rule-breaking Gryffindor named Patricia Rakepick, played a key role in escalating the tension. Known for her rebellious nature, Patricia was obsessed with uncovering the fabled cursed vaults, mysterious rooms hidden within Hogwarts, said to be protected by powerful curses and to contain ancient magical treasures or dangerous dark magic. Severus, curious and suspicious of her motives, began following her. While others dismissed her obsession as foolish, he saw something different: ambition, intelligence, and perhaps a real threat. Though they were in rival houses, he couldn't ignore the sense that Patricia might stumble onto something dangerous. Years later, as potions master, he would finally uncover the truth about the cursed vaults. But that is a story for another time. During these years, Severus started associating more with fellow Slytherins who shared extreme ideologies: pure blood supremacy, disdain for Muggleborns, and growing support for the Dark Lord. Among his new acquaintances were Narcissa Black, Avon Rosier, Avery, Mulciber, and Wilkes. In late-night discussions in the Slytherin Common Room, they spoke openly of Voldemort's rise and the coming transformation of the wizarding world. Lucius Malfoy, a prefect and heir to a powerful pure-blood family, took Severus under his wing, showing him the privileges of status and influence. But these new friendships began to create a rift between Severus and Lily. Lily could feel him changing. His once gentle curiosity now had a sharp edge. The anger and isolation he'd always carried seemed to be growing stronger. The boy she'd shared secrets with was becoming someone else, someone she wasn't sure she could reach anymore. Then came the breaking point. One spring afternoon in their 5th year, Severus was quietly reading near the Black Lake when James Potter and the Marauders ambushed him. Furious over a recent report Severus had made to Argus Filch, they humiliated him in front of other students. "Levicorpus," James shouted. Severus was yanked into the air by his ankle, his robes flipping over to expose him, as laughter erupted from the crowd. Lily rushed to his defense, shouting for James to stop, but Severus, humiliated and enraged, lashed out. "You filthy mudblood," he spat, words that cut deeper than any curse. Lily froze. Something in her broke. That evening, Mary McDonald told Lily that Severus had been seen lingering near the entrance to Gryffindor Tower, waiting for her. Despite the pain still fresh in her heart, Lily agreed to see him. When she appeared, Severus immediately begged for forgiveness, his voice desperate. But Lily, her eyes filled with hurt, needed more than an apology. She asked the one question that had been haunting her. Was it true? Was he planning to become a Death Eater? Severus didn't answer. The silence between them grew heavier by the second. He couldn't deny it, nor could he lie. And in that silence, Lily saw the truth. Her expression hardened. She understood, finally and fully, that Severus wasn't going to change, not even for her. A tear traced her cheek as she turned away. Their friendship, once unbreakable, was over. The days at Hogwarts continued, but a chill had settled between them. That summer, Severus, driven by curiosity and resentment, followed a rumor about Remus Lupin's mysterious absences. He discovered that Madame Pomfrey led Remus through a secret passage beneath the Whomping Willow during every full moon. Sirius Black, seeking revenge after losing his Quidditch spot, told Severus how to reach the Shrieking Shack. Unaware of the danger, Severus nearly stumbled into the path of a transformed werewolf. James, however, intervened at the last moment and dragged him back. Though he saved Severus' life, Snape refused to believe it was an act of kindness. He assumed James had done it only to avoid punishment and deeply resented being indebted to him. Dumbledore ordered Severus to keep what he'd learned a secret, but the damage was done. Now Severus knew Remus' secret, and he would never forget the betrayal he felt. By 7th year, James Potter had matured. He'd grown into a better man, confident but more grounded. For the first time, Lily saw in him something more than arrogance. They began spending time together as head boy and head girl, helping each other with studies, learning spells like the Patronus Charm. Urza is a stag. Eventually, Lily agreed to go out with him. Their first date at Honeydukes was filled with laughter, and soon after, they became a couple. During the Christmas holidays of their final year, Lily felt it was time to mend an old wound. She wanted to reconcile with her sister Petunia, who had grown more distant and bitter over the years. She asked James to accompany her for a meeting with Petunia and her fiancé, Vernon Dursley. But the encounter went poorly. Vernon, unimpressed by anything magical, tried to boast about his car. James, playfully, countered by mentioning his racing broom. Vernon assumed James was unemployed. James, in turn, casually referenced his family's wealth in galleons, further confusing and irritating Vernon. Petunia, meanwhile, remained cold and cutting. When she and Vernon abruptly left, Lily broke down in tears. James, seeing her heart take, promised to fix it next time. But there would never be a next time. By the end of the school year, Lily and Severus were entirely estranged. He remained deeply embedded in Slytherin's pure-blood circles, his ideology hardened. Watching Lily with James was painful for him, but both of them had made their choices. Exams passed, and so ended their time at Hogwarts. A darker time was on the horizon. Lily and James married soon after graduation, with Sirius Black as James' best man. Their wedding was intimate and quiet. War made everything uncertain. They were joined by the Marauders and James' parents. Petunia, of course, did not attend. Soon they joined the Order of the Phoenix, led by Albus Dumbledore, to resist Voldemort's rise. Alongside their old friends, they fought back against the Death Eaters. Lily and James faced Voldemort 3 times and survived each encounter. Impressed by Lily's skills, Voldemort even offered her a place at his side, seeking to exploit her past pain and family conflict. But Lily refused him without hesitation. Then, in 1979, came unexpected joy. Lily was pregnant. Unbeknownst to them, Severus Snape, now among Voldemort's inner circle, overheard part of a prophecy from Sybil Trelawney. It spoke of a child born at the end of July, one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord. For Lily, who lived in a loving but ordinary Muggle household, Severus was a window into the unknown. For Severus, Lily became the embodiment of everything good, someone who didn't mock his shabby clothes or his strange interests, but instead admired him. Yet, their friendship, beautiful as it was, stood on fragile ground. Petunia Evans, Lily's older sister, disapproved of Severus from the start. She was jealous, both of Lily's magical abilities and of the time she spent with this boy from the dreariest part of town. Petunia's hostility only grew when she learned that she would not be joining her sister at Hogwarts, despite writing to Professor Dumbledore and pleading to be accepted. When her request was kindly denied, her disappointment turned to resentment. And so, even before the 2 children boarded the Hogwarts Express, the first cracks in Lily's family and her friendship with Severus had already begun to form. First encounters with the Marauders. September 1st, 1971, marked the beginning of a journey that would change the lives of Severus and Lily forever. As they boarded the Hogwarts Express, they were filled with excitement and nerves. During the train ride, they encountered 2 other first-years who had come to play pivotal roles in their lives, James Potter and Sirius Black. The meeting, however, was anything but friendly. A heated debate quickly arose over which Hogwarts house was the best. Severus, proud of his magical heritage and his admiration for powerful wizards like Merlin, supported Slytherin. James and Sirius, products of Gryffindor households, dismissed Slytherin as the haven of dark wizards. The argument escalated when James mocked Severus' appearance, particularly his greasy hair and oversized clothes. Lily tried to defuse the situation, but the damage was done. That initial altercation marked the beginning of a bitter rivalry, particularly between James and Severus, that would define much of their school years. From that moment on, James and Sirius, soon to be known as 2 of the infamous Marauders, saw Snape as a target for mockery, and Severus, in turn, saw them as arrogant bullies. This dynamic would haunt all of them for years to come, with Lily caught uneasily in the middle. The beginning of division. The sorting ceremony confirmed what Severus had hoped and feared. As he had long expected, he was sorted into Slytherin. He looked to Lily, praying they would share a house. But the sorting hat declared her a Gryffindor, and she walked away to sit beside James Potter, smiling nervously among strangers. Severus felt a chill of loneliness settle over him. Though their friendship continued, this division set them on different paths, both socially and ideologically. Hogwarts, with all its enchantments and opportunities, also became a place of emotional strain for Severus. He excelled in potions and defense against the dark arts, outshining many of his peers, and even showing a natural talent in spell creation and advanced magical theory. Yet, he remained isolated, brilliant but brooding, respected for his abilities but disliked for his cold demeanor and his growing association with like-minded Slytherins who held extreme views on blood purity. Lily, meanwhile, flourished in Gryffindor. She quickly became one of the most admired students in her year, known for her intelligence, compassion, and strong sense of justice. She was invited to Professor Slughorn's exclusive Slug Club, a recognition of her talent and promise. Severus was not. Despite their house rivalry and increasing social separation, their friendship endured, at least for a while. Growing shadows and divided paths. As the years passed, the differences between Severus and Lily began to deepen. While Lily expanded her circle of friends and remained committed to fairness and inclusion, Severus fell in with a group of Slytherins who openly supported the ideology of the rising Dark Lord. Lucius Malfoy, Narcissa Black, Avon Rosier, Avery, and Mulciber were among the names he began associating with, often staying up late in the common room discussing the superiority of pure-blood wizards and their dreams of a world purged of Muggle influence. Though Severus rarely expressed these views to Lily, she couldn't ignore what was happening. She tried to talk him out of these associations, sensing the change in his personality. He was becoming more bitter, more closed off, and increasingly angry. But Severus had found in the dark philosophies a sense of identity and belonging that he had never felt before. These were people who respected his intelligence, his magical prowess, and most of all, his disdain for the world that had mistreated him. Lily, however, found herself pulled in the opposite direction. Her distaste for blood prejudice only grew stronger, especially after witnessing incidents of bullying and dark magic from within the Slytherin circle. Voldemort became obsessed. 2 children matched the prophecy: Neville Longbottom and Harry Potter. Ultimately, he chose Harry. Severus, realizing this meant Lily's life was in danger, was horrified. He begged Voldemort to spare her. The Dark Lord agreed, but only because Severus asked. Still, Severus knew that Lily would never let harm come to her son. So, desperate to save her, he went to Dumbledore and offered his loyalty, on one condition: save Lily. Dumbledore agreed, but insisted that if Severus truly wanted to honor Lily, he must help protect her family by spying on Voldemort. The tension of the war escalated. The year 1981 brought with it a storm of darkness and uncertainty. The Potters, though brave and committed to the fight, knew the risks. They were fully aware that Voldemort had marked Harry as his target, and the prophecy had changed everything. Lily and James moved into the Godric's Hollow Cottage, a safe haven under the protection of Fidelius' charm, with Peter Pettigrew as their secret keeper. They were under constant threat, but for the moment, they had a semblance of peace. Lily, at least, tried to focus on the joy of her growing family. But even joy couldn't erase the shadow of the danger hanging over them. Severus Snape, meanwhile, was working diligently as a double agent. His loyalty to Dumbledore was unwavering, though it pained him every time he saw Lily and Harry from a distance. His heart ached to see them safe, but he couldn't reveal his feelings. He knew he had made a deal with the devil in order to protect them. His unspoken love for Lily only complicated his resolve. He was living a life filled with guilt, regret, and unbearable loss. The fateful night arrived. Voldemort, now determined to kill the child who could defeat him, learned that Harry was at Godric's Hollow. With cold precision, he and his Death Eaters stormed the house. James tried to protect his family, but it was futile. He was killed in an instant, a hero's death, and then it was Lily's turn. When Voldemort confronted Lily, he offered her one final chance to join him. But Lily, still resolute, refused without hesitation, choosing her son's life over her own. The Dark Lord, enraged by her defiance, struck her down with the killing curse. But there was something unexpected in her death. Lily's sacrifice, her selflessness, protected Harry in a way Voldemort could not have foreseen. The curse rebounded upon him, destroying the Dark Lord's physical form and leaving him a shadow of his former self, weak and broken. Harry survived, left with only a lightning-shaped scar on his forehead, a mark of his mother's love and sacrifice. The world rejoiced, but there was still a great void. Lily's absence was felt deeply, especially by those who had known her true heart. As for Severus Snape, he was torn apart by the knowledge of Lily's death. He had betrayed her by his actions in life, and in the end, he could do nothing to save her. Yet he would carry her memory and the guilt with him for the rest of his life. He would protect Harry, if only to honor the woman he had loved, and to redeem himself in some way for the choices he had made. Years passed. The Potters became legends, heroes remembered in whispered stories, a beacon of resistance against the dark forces. Severus remained a complex figure, his true motivations hidden from the world. Only Dumbledore knew the full extent of his sacrifice. And Harry, though he never truly understood the depth of his mother's love, would carry that love with him through every battle, every hardship, and every victory. He would face the Dark Lord again, not as a helpless child, but as a determined warrior. The sacrifice that had shaped the world would never be forgotten. Lily's legacy, her courage, her love, would continue to guide Harry and Severus until the final battle was fought and won. The war ended, but the consequences of their choices echoed through generations. Lily, James, Severus, and Harry, all bound together by fate, by love, and by the choices they made. Breakdown. The Prince family legacy. To understand the troubled legacy of Severus Snape, one must begin with the ancient and proud lineage of the Prince family, an old pure-blood wizarding house known for its wealth, tradition, and isolation. Eileen Prince, Severus' mother, was born in 1930 as the eldest daughter of this prestigious line. Her childhood, while outwardly cloaked in privilege, was in reality steeped in tension and unmet expectations. Her family, like many pure-blood dynasties, longed for a male heir to carry on the name, and Eileen's birth failed to satisfy that desire. This led to a chilly household atmosphere, where she was often viewed with resentment and disappointment. As Europe was gripped by the chaos of the global wizarding war, dominated by the dark rise of Gellert Grindelwald, Eileen escaped into the hallowed halls of Hogwarts. There, she was sorted in a Slytherin house, a reflection of her intelligence, ambition, and introversion. Though gifted in magic, especially in the dark arts, Eileen was regarded as odd and aloof by her peers. Her one true passion was gobstones, a magical game often dismissed by other students, yet one that gave her a rare sense of belonging. She became captain of the Hogwarts Gobstones team and president of its club, achievements that failed to elevate her social standing but gave her a semblance of control in a life that had often felt dictated by others. After graduation, Eileen made a bold choice. She abandoned the world of her ancestors and ventured into the Muggle world, seeking independence from her family's toxic expectations. This decision would change not only her own life, but also the fate of the entire wizarding world. Eileen Prince and Tobias Snape. Eileen's life took another drastic turn when she met Tobias Snape, a Muggle from the industrial Midlands of England. Tobias was kind to her at first, offering her the kind of affection she had never received in her own home. Captivated by what she perceived as genuine love, Eileen married Tobias, a decision that likely led to her disarmament by the Prince family, much like other pure-blood witches such as Andromeda Tonks, who defy their lineage. The couple settled in a rundown neighborhood called Spinner's End in the factory town of Cokeworth, a place far removed from the magic and wonder Eileen had once known. Tobias, burdened by a working-class job in a declining economy, soon became bitter and resentful. The spark that had briefly warmed their relationship faded, replaced by frustration and emotional distance. When Eileen became pregnant, Tobias reacted with anger and rejection. Nevertheless, she chose to carry the child to term, perhaps seeing in her unborn son a chance to reclaim some meaning in her life. Yet, as time passed, that fragile hope began to decay. The home turned into a battleground of rage and depression. Tobias' drinking grew worse, and his behavior hinted at physical abuse. Eileen, who had once dreamed of nurturing a magical child, found herself drained by despair and unable to show the love she had longed to give. Their household, steeped in neglect and hostility, became the formative environment for young Severus Snape, a boy born into conflict, shaped by a toxic mixture of magical heritage and Muggle contempt. A child of two worlds, Severus Snape was born in January 1960 into a home devoid of warmth and safety. The son of a disenfranchised witch and an embittered Muggle, he straddled the delicate and often painful line between two worlds. From the beginning, Severus was starved of affection. His father, Tobias, saw him as a symbol of his ruined life, treating the boy with disdain, while Eileen, slipping further into depression, became emotionally distant. Yet, despite, or perhaps because of, his turbulent upbringing, young Severus began to exhibit signs of exceptional magical ability at a very early age. Long before receiving his Hogwarts letter, he was already capable of advanced spells and had developed a curiosity for the dark arts, fostered in secret by his mother. This early training not only gave him a head start over his peers, but also set the stage for a dangerous and lonely path. Notably, Severus exhibited signs of legitimacy, a rare magical skill that allowed him to read and navigate the thoughts and emotions of others. This power, coupled with his acute sensitivity to the world around him, made his isolation even more painful, as he was often all too aware of the anger, disappointment, and judgment directed at him. Severus grew up not just misunderstood, but unseen, except on one fateful summer day when he noticed a girl with red hair who radiated joy, magic, and kindness. Her name was Lily Evans. In that moment, Severus' bleak world found its first glimpse of light. And from that spark began one of the most tragic and powerful stories in the wizarding world. A magical bond. The beginning of Severus Snape and Lily Evans' friendship was as magical as it was fateful. When Severus saw Lily for the first time, she was playing in a park near her home in Cokeworth, unknowingly displaying signs of magical talent, like making a flower bloom without touching it. Drawn by both curiosity and recognition, Severus revealed to her a truth she had never considered. She was a witch. At first startled and insulted by the word, Lily soon came to understand what it meant. Severus, more knowledgeable in magical lore, due to the teachings of his mother Eileen, became her guide into a world she had never imagined. Their bond quickly deepened as they spent countless hours together, exploring the woods, sharing stories, and dreaming about their futures at Hogwarts. A wedge had begun to form between them, one that, despite their best efforts, neither could prevent from widening. The rise of the half-blood prince. To shield himself from the ridicule and rejection he faced at Hogwarts, Severus began crafting a new identity, the half-blood prince. This moniker, derived from his mother's surname Prince and his mixed heritage, became the signature under which he wrote spell modifications, brewed new potions, and invented powerful hexes. In his copy of Advanced Potion Making, Severus meticulously recorded not just better brewing methods, but entire new incantations. Among his most notable creations were Levicorpus, a non-verbal spell that dangled victims upside down by their ankles, Mufflietto, which filled the ears of nearby people with buzzing sounds, and Langlock, which glued the target's tongue to the roof of their mouth. But perhaps his darkest creation was Sectum Sempra, a curse designed to cause deep, violent cuts as if slashed by an invisible sword. It was magic born from pain and survival, a reflection of his inner turmoil and his desperation to protect himself. While these spells were brilliant, they were also dangerous. Severus never intended to share them openly, but their very creation underscored his duality. A genius student who could have been one of the most celebrated of his generation, but who instead turned his talents toward secrecy and self-defense. The incident by the Black Lake. The turning point in Severus and Lily's friendship came during their 5th year on a spring afternoon by the Black Lake. James Potter and Sirius Black, angry over yet another tip-off from Severus that landed them in trouble, decided to publicly humiliate him. Without warning, James used the Levicorpus spell, hoisting Severus into the air by his ankle in front of a crowd of students. His robes fell, exposing him, while James mocked him as Snivelus. Lily rushed to his defense, furious at the cruelty. But instead of thanking her, Severus, burning with humiliation and unable to control his anger, lashed out and called her a filthy mudblood. The word, filled with centuries of hatred toward Muggleborns, landed like a knife. Lily's face hardened. For all the loyalty she had shown him, for all the chances she had given him to change, this was too much. That evening, Severus waited outside Gryffindor Tower, desperate to apologize. When Lily finally came out, she didn't speak right away. She just looked at him, really looked. She asked him one question. Was it true he planned to join the Death Eaters? Severus couldn't bring himself to answer, and in his silence, Lily found the truth. She walked away, her heart broken, and with her went the last thread that bound their friendship. That moment, filled with rage, sorrow, and silence, became Severus Snape's worst memory, a haunting echo that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Lily and James. In the final years of their time at Hogwarts, the atmosphere within the castle grew darker. The wizarding world was changing rapidly outside its walls, and even inside them, alliances were shifting. For Lily Evans, the pain of losing Severus as a friend still lingered, but she continued to rise as a beloved student, admired not just for her magical talent, but for her leadership and kindness. By 7th year, she was appointed head girl, and to her surprise, her fellow head was none other than James Potter, the very boy she had once considered insufferable. But James had changed. Over time, he had shed much of his arrogance and childish cruelty. The bullying, especially of Severus, had significantly diminished, and James now carried himself with more maturity and focus. As they worked together in their new roles, Lily began to see another side of him, one that was responsible, protective, and undeniably brave. Their shared duties often placed them together in the common room, patrolling the halls or organizing school events. Slowly, what had once been antagonism softened into camaraderie, and camaraderie into affection. They began dating after their first official outing to Honeydukes in Hogsmeade. For James, it had always been Lily. For Lily, it had taken time, but she had finally seen in him what she had long searched for: loyalty, courage, and a heart willing to protect those he loved at all costs. Severus and the path of no return. While Lily's relationship with James blossomed, Severus Snape continued down a far darker path. Still aligned with his Slytherin peers who admired the ideology of Voldemort, he became deeply entangled in conversations and activities that revolved around pure blood supremacy and the dark arts. He was no longer just dabbling in dangerous magic. He was immersing himself in a worldview that was rapidly sweeping across their generation of Slytherins. Among his closest influences were Lucius Malfoy and Mulciber, both of whom were already moving toward Voldemort's inner circle. Though Severus never lost his deep feelings for Lily, those feelings were buried under bitterness and a growing fanaticism, fueled by the rejection and loneliness he had always known. The boy who once lit up at the sound of Lily's voice now sat silently in dark corners of the common room, consumed by rage and purpose. He still excelled academically, showing particular brilliance in potions, curses, and spellcraft, but his talents were being sharpened for darker aims. He had chosen a path, one that would soon take him far beyond the boundaries of Hogwarts, into a war that would define the rest of his life. The darkening world and the fall of friendship. Outside the safe haven of Hogwarts, the wizarding world was spiraling into chaos. Lord Voldemort's power was growing, and the First Wizarding War had begun in earnest. Graduates had to choose sides, either to resist or to serve. For Severus, the transition was almost seamless. He joined the Death Eaters, accepting the Dark Mark as a symbol of allegiance. His name was soon whispered in the shadows as a rising star within Voldemort's inner circle. Meanwhile, Lily and James made a different choice. Fresh out of Hogwarts and supported by the vast Potter family wealth, the couple married and immediately joined the newly formed Order of the Phoenix, an underground resistance movement led by Albus Dumbledore. Their wedding was a quiet ceremony, marked by joy but overshadowed by danger. Sirius Black stood beside James as best man, while Remus Lupin and Peter Pettigrew also attended. Notably absent was Petunia, Lily's sister, whose jealousy and bitterness had only deepened over the years. Lily had tried one last time to reconnect with her sister, bringing James to a disastrous meeting with Petunia and her fiancé Vernon Dursley. The evening ended in harsh words and slanders. There would be no reconciliation. The war outside only grew more violent, and the Potters' new life as a married couple was soon consumed by missions, secrecy, and survival. The prophecy and the unraveling of fates. In a quiet corner of the wizarding village of Hogsmeade, a prophecy was uttered that would shape the destiny of the entire magical world. At the Hogshead Inn, Sybil Trelawney, during a job interview with Dumbledore, fell into a trance and spoke of a child born as the 7th month dies, who would have the power to defeat the Dark Lord. Severus Snape happened to overhear the first part of that prophecy and quickly delivered it to Voldemort. What he didn't realize at the time was that this information would be used to mark Lily's own child for death. The Dark Lord, interpreting the prophecy as referring to the Potter's son Harry, decided to eliminate the threat before it could grow. When Severus discovered what Voldemort intended to do, he was shattered. His entire life may have been consumed by anger and ambition, but his love for Lily had never faltered. In a desperate bid to save her, he went to Dumbledore and begged him to protect Lily, even offering to turn spy in exchange. Dumbledore agreed, but he made no promises about James or the child. Severus, willing to sacrifice everything, agreed to become a double agent, forever altering the course of the war. The night everything changed. Despite all of Dumbledore's efforts and Severus' warnings, tragedy struck on Halloween night, 1981. The Potters had gone into hiding in Godric's Hollow, using the Fidelius charm. But their secret keeper, Peter Pettigrew, one of their closest friends, betrayed them to Voldemort. That night, the Dark Lord arrived at their home. James Potter tried to hold him off, wandless and unprepared, and was killed immediately. Upstairs, Lily held her son in her arms, refusing to stand aside even when Voldemort gave her the option to live. She begged for Harry's life, and in doing so, cast an ancient protective magic that even Voldemort did not understand. Her sacrifice caused the killing curse to rebound upon Voldemort, destroying his body and reducing him to a formless shadow. Harry survived, marked with the lightning-shaped scar that would one day define him as the boy who lived. The wizarding world rejoiced, but for Severus Snape, the loss of Lily was too great to bear. A life of guilt, loyalty, and redemption. Severus Snape was inconsolable. He had lost the one person who had ever truly cared for him, the only light in a life otherwise filled with shadows. Overcome with grief and guilt, he turned once more to Dumbledore, this time not just for guidance, but for a cause. Dumbledore persuaded him that Lily's sacrifice had given Harry something precious, and that the child must now be protected at all costs. Severus agreed. From that day forward, he dedicated his life to protecting Harry Potter, even though the boy was a painful reminder of everything he had lost. He became a spy for the Order, and later a professor at Hogwarts, where he watched over Harry from afar. Though he was cold and strict with the boy, often cruel, his true motivations were hidden beneath a shield of secrecy and pain. When asked, years later, why he continued to risk his life for a boy who reminded him so much of James Potter, Snape showed Dumbledore the Patronus he had carried since Lily's death, a silver doe, the same as hers. Always, he whispered. In that single word was a lifetime of grief, love, and redemption. Final thoughts. The story of Severus Snape and Lily Evans is one of the most tragic and emotionally complex arcs in the entire Harry Potter saga. It is a tale that transcends the usual boundaries of good and evil, painting instead a portrait of two souls shaped by love, choices, and fate. Lily, with her unwavering compassion and moral clarity, stood as a beacon of hope in a time of growing darkness. Her kindness changed the course of Severus Snape's life, becoming the one anchor that tethered him to humanity even as he fell deeper into the shadows. Severus, for all his faults and bitter mistakes, ultimately proved that redemption is never out of reach, no matter how far one has fallen. Their story reminds us that love, in all its forms, friendship, sacrifice, and unspoken devotion, has the power to change destinies. Snape's love for Lily did not redeem his every action, but it gave purpose to a life haunted by pain. And it was that love which ultimately protected the boy who lived and helped bring about the fall of the Dark Lord. In the end, their bond may have been broken in life, but in legacy it endured. As Dumbledore once said, it is our choices that show what we truly are, and Severus Snape, for all his darkness, chose to protect the child of the woman he loved, always.